In today's video, we're diving into the chilling story of one of America's most notorious serial killers, Ted Bundy. Known for his charm, intelligence, and brutality, Bundy's horrific crimes have left a lasting scar on the nation. From his troubled childhood and complex relationships to his shocking murders and dramatic escapes, we'll uncover the details that made Bundy a media sensation and a terrifying figure in criminal history. In this video, we'll explore the dark life and twisted mind of Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy was a notorious serial killer who terrorized America in the 1970s. Confessing to the murders of 30 women, although experts suggest there could be more than 100 victims, Bundy was finally caught in February 1978. He received 3 death sentences for killing 2 women from the Chi Omega Sorority at Florida State University and a 12-year-old girl. Bundy's charming demeanor made him a media sensation during his trial, and his story has been the subject of many books and movies about serial killers. He was executed in January 1989 at the age of 42. And here are some quick facts about him. Theodore Robert Bundy, commonly known as Ted Bundy, was born on November 24, 1946, in Burlington, Vermont. He died on January 24, 1989. He was married to Carol Ann Boone from 1980 to 1986. Before we start, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next video, where we'll explore how some of Ted Bundy's victims survived encounters with him. And if you enjoyed this video, please remember to like and share it to support more captivating stories like this. Now, let's get back to Ted Bundy's unsettling tale. Ted Bundy was born on November 24, 1946, in Burlington, Vermont. His birth marked a troubled beginning, as he was born out of wedlock to Eleanor Louise Cowell, known as Louise, who was just 22 years old at the time. Louise gave birth to Ted at a home for unwed mothers, and later moved with him to her parents' home in Philadelphia. Ted's birth certificate does not name his father, leaving his paternity a mystery. Speculations suggest individuals like Lloyd Marshall, an Air Force veteran and Penn State graduate, or Jack Worthington could be his father. Rumors even circulated that his father might have been his grandfather. To conceal the shame of having an illegitimate child, Bundy was raised by his grandparents as their adopted son, with his mother posing as his older sister. The family relocated to Tacoma, Washington, where Louise eventually married Johnny Bundy in 1951. Ted took on the Bundy name, but reportedly had strained relations with his stepfather, whom he viewed as uneducated and beneath him. Johnny and Louise went on to have several children together. Despite his turbulent family dynamics, Bundy appeared to grow up in a stable working-class environment. However, signs of his disturbing interests emerged early on. Fascinated by knives from a young age, he also exhibited a morbid curiosity and allegedly engaged in troubling behaviors like dissecting animals and displaying a lack of empathy. During his teenage years, Bundy's behavior took a darker turn. He developed a habit of peering into windows and stealing items that caught his interest, foreshadowing the criminal tendencies that would later define his infamous legacy. Bundy earned a psychology degree from the University of Washington in 1972 before moving on to law school in Utah, though he did not complete his legal studies. During his time at the University of Washington, Bundy became romantically involved with Diane Edwards, a wealthy young woman from California who embodied everything he admired: wealth, class, and influence. Their breakup deeply affected him, and many of Bundy's later victims shared similarities with Edwards: beautiful, dark-haired young women. By the mid-1970s, Bundy underwent a transformation, becoming more outwardly confident and involved in social and political activities. He even received a letter of recommendation from the Republican governor of Washington after assisting with his campaign. Bundy confessed to the murders of 30 women across several states during the 1970s, though experts speculate the actual number could be much higher, possibly exceeding 100 victims. After initially denying his crimes, Bundy's admission of guilt came shortly before his execution, viewed by some as a tactic to delay his death. His modus operandi typically involved luring women into his car under the guise of needing assistance, only to assault and kill them. Bundy's victims often suffered brutal assaults, including rape, before being beaten to death. The timeline of Bundy's killing spree remains debated. While most sources suggest he began his murderous activities around 1974, disappearances of women in the Seattle and Oregon areas earlier in the decade have been linked to him. Criminologist Matt Belisi argues in his 2023 book that Bundy likely started killing much earlier, possibly in his adolescence, and may have committed over 100 murders. The exact extent of Bundy's crimes remains uncertain due to the challenges authorities faced in tracking his movements and identifying all his victims. Elizabeth Kloepfer is perhaps Ted Bundy's most well-known girlfriend and played a crucial role in his eventual arrest. They met in 1969 at a Seattle bar and began a 6-year relationship. At the time, Kloepfer was a single mother struggling with alcoholism. Bundy appeared caring and supportive, and she described him as warm and loving. By 1974, Kloepfer began to suspect Bundy was involved in local crimes. His strange behaviors, such as keeping a meat cleaver in his desk, raised red flags. However, Bundy used his charm to ease her suspicions. Despite her doubts, Kloepfer went to the police with her concerns about Bundy, but they initially dismissed her claims. Although their relationship continued, it became strained when Bundy relocated to Olympia the following year. In 1975, Kloepfer again approached the police, this time with more substantial evidence that led to Bundy's arrest. He later admitted to her over the phone from prison that he had attempted to kill her and couldn't control his urges when his sickness took over. This confession marked the end of their relationship. Kloepfer eventually wrote a book detailing her experiences with Bundy. In the fall of 1974, Bundy relocated to Utah to attend law school, and soon after, women began disappearing there too. In 1975, he was pulled over by police, and a search of his car revealed a collection of burglary tools, including a crowbar, a face mask, rope, and handcuffs. This discovery led to his arrest, and police began to connect him to more serious crimes. Later that year, Bundy was arrested for the kidnapping of Carol DeRonch, one of the few women who managed to escape from him. He was convicted and sentenced to 1 to 15 years in prison. Bundy managed to escape from prison twice in 1977. The first escape occurred after he was indicted for the murder of a young woman in Colorado. Acting as his own lawyer, Bundy took advantage of a visit to the courthouse library to jump out of a window and flee. He was recaptured 8 days later. In December of the same year, Bundy escaped again. This time, he climbed through a hole he had created in the ceiling of his cell, having lost over 30 pounds to fit through the small opening. Authorities didn't realize he was missing for 15 hours, giving Bundy a significant head start. After his second prison escape, Ted Bundy made his way to Tallahassee, Florida. On the night of January 14, 1978, he broke into the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State University, attacking 4 young women and killing 2, Margaret Bowman and Lisa Levy. Less than a month later, on February 9th, Bundy kidnapped and murdered 12-year-old Kimberly Leach. These heinous crimes marked the end of his killing spree as he was pulled over by police later that month. The most incriminating evidence tying Bundy to the Chi Omega murders were bite marks on Lisa Levy's body, which matched Bundy's dental impressions. During this time, Bundy's mother, Louise, was working as a secretary at the University of Puget Sound. Initially, she refused to believe the charges against her son, but changed her stance after his confession. Bundy's good looks, charm, and intelligence turned him into a media sensation during his trial. Despite his efforts to defend himself, he was convicted in July 1979 for the murders of Bowman and Levy, receiving 2 death sentences. He spent 9 years on death row, appealing his sentence. In 1980, Bundy was given another death sentence for the murder of Kimberly Leach. This sentence ultimately led to his execution by electric chair in 1989. Bundy attempted to appeal his case to the U.S. Supreme Court, but was denied. He also offered information on other unsolved murders in hopes of avoiding the death penalty, but his efforts were in vain. In February 1980, Ted Bundy married Carol Ann Boone, a mother of 2 whom he had dated before his initial arrest. They wed in a courtroom during the penalty phase of his trial, with Bundy proposing and Boone accepting in front of the judge, making their marriage legitimate under Florida law. The couple had first met 6 years earlier while working at the Department of Emergency Services in Olympia, Washington. Boone gave birth to a daughter named Rose in 1982, and Bundy was named as the father. Initially, Bundy's paternity was questioned since he was not allowed conjugal visits in prison. However, Anne Rule, a former co-worker and author who wrote extensively about Bundy, suggested that Bundy might have bribed prison guards to allow him private time with Boone. Eventually, Boone came to believe in Bundy's guilt. According to Rule's book, Boone divorced Bundy in 1986 and moved to Washington with her daughter. Not much is known about Rose, also called Rosa today, as Boone likely changed their names to maintain their privacy. Anne Rule deliberately refrained from seeking information about Boone or Rose to respect their privacy. "I don't want to know where they are. I never want to be caught off guard by some reporter's question about them," Rule wrote on her website. "All I know is that Ted's daughter has grown up to be a fine young woman." On January 24, 1989, Bundy was executed around 7 a.m. at Florida State Prison in an electric chair known as Old Sparky. Outside the prison, crowds cheered and set off fireworks, celebrating his death with chants of "Burn, Bundy, burn," and banging on frying pans. Religious broadcaster James Dobson interviewed Bundy the night before his execution. Dobson claimed Bundy wept multiple times and expressed remorse for his actions. On the eve of his death, Bundy made 2 phone calls to his mother and had a final meal of steak, eggs, hash browns, and toast. Bundy's last words were directed to his lawyer, Jim Coleman, and Minister Fred Lawrence. "I'd like you to give my love to my family and friends," he said before his execution. After his death, scientists examined Bundy's brain for abnormalities that could explain his violent behavior, but found none. Bundy's body was cremated in Gainesville, Florida, without a public ceremony. He had requested that his ashes be scattered in the Cascade Mountains of Washington State, where he had murdered at least 4 of his victims. If you want to see more of the most frightening horror videos, check out our previous videos and subscribe to be notified of new, terrifying experiences. Until we meet again, be cautious of the supernatural and be careful when navigating through dark and eerie situations.